I do think the legislative approaches to this issue may be too little too late. And I think that ultimately, I don't know that you can stop the freight train of technology with legislative mandates. Hello and welcome to Beneath the Law. My name is Gavin Ty, here with my good buddy Stephen Teal. Stephen, how are you on this freezing and frigid Groundhog Day?
Well, I understand it's supposed to be a, quote, early spring, but it's really a riddle, isn't it?
Early where? It's not very. If it's early, I don't know.
Was it Wyerton Willie or Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow and it's supposed to be, quote, an early spring? Okay, yeah.
I'm not sure which one of the overgrown rodents was particular. I think there were mixed reviews. It's a pretty useful way to cover your bases in terms of being wrong. It's like one rodent says early, one rodent says late. Well, there you go.
Yeah, you can never be wrong because we know that spring comes in 6 weeks. So it's either 6 weeks of winter or it'll be 6 weeks until spring.
That's incredible.
So there you go.
Heads or tails, same coin. There you are.
Anyway, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. I'm not. I fortunately got down south for a little bit, which was really nice. Great to get a break up of this horrible winter. In the meantime, I had surgery on my hand, which was like, I don't know what the heck I did. Growing old, man. That's a secret. Yeah. So we're going to talk about something that was never around when we were kids.
You were going to show our age.
We are going to show our age, and actually, it's a pretty remarkable thing. I talk about it with my kids all the time. We're both about the same age. Our kids are kind of the same generation. They kind of rode just before I mean, social media was obviously a huge part of their upbringing. They're now in their 20s, but not really quite. They kind of didn't get as immersed in it, I think, as kids that are growing up now, like that are teenagers today, who really have known nothing else in their lives other than social media. And combine that with what I call the pressure cooker of the COVID pandemic, where you were locked into, a confined space. You might as well have been living on the moon. And your only social interaction was social media, because you were trapped. I mean, other than your bubble, whatever that was. So we've got a generation that has grown up in social media, and I really think it's hugely problematic, because one of the things, the way I look at the world is, evolution of the human species goes at a certain pace. Technology goes at a million miles an hour faster than evolution. And I don't know that people, despite what they may think of themselves, and our brains have evolved as fast as our technology.
I can tell you, Gavin, so when my son was in high school, he actually did a project on, connectivity to social media. And, one of his good friends basically had issues because what he said was it was hard to disconnect from social media, right? And I can see it in my own thing. I'm on WhatsApp for hockey. I'm on, texting with other people, and people text you, they phone you, they email
I'm laughing
you.
because my dog is on social media right now, barking away.
Well, he wants to get on social media.
He wants to be a star, and he should be. But anyways, go on. Sorry.
My son was doing this project and looking at already, and this is maybe about 7 years ago, I guess now, at the mental health issues that social media is causing, because, as you say, we're working now at 1,000 kilometers an hour, and everybody is bombarding you. Everybody wants a response from you immediately, and so, as you say, we're seeing this play out particularly now within school boards, who are having to hire more counselors and more professionals to deal with mental health issues instead of putting those tax dollars into into the classroom and actually teaching. That's certainly their argument that they're making, and we have now a number of lawsuits on that
Yeah.
very
So
issue.
look, I think it just comes back down to sort of basic um realities. I mean, I know that, for example, I'm really going to show my age, but when I was a teenager, um, you saw your friends at school, you saw your friends on the street. Those were basically my friends. Like I didn't have like Facebook friends. There wasn't any Facebook. My friends were the people I knew. And if I wanted to talk to my friends sort of after hours when everybody went home, um, we talk on the phone. And I don't know about you, but we had one phone in the house, and nobody had cell phones. You had a landline, and if you were on it too long, first of all, it was usually in the kitchen where your mother was listening to everything you said, and second of all, if you were on it too long, you got yelled at. So, um, you didn't talk. You kind of disconnected from your social life
Right.
overnight. You came home, the one thing was is in our generation, everybody watched the same TV show because there were only three stations. But you watched a TV show and you went to bed and you got up next day and whatever. But like now, kids, it's like a 24/7. They're in a pinball machine. I think of it like, you're like basically living in a pinball machine 24 hours a day. Ding ding ding. Everybody's trying to show this like perfect Instagram life, where everyone's wonderful and they've got everything, and people, look at things, and it just the pressure of growing up in that kind of a 24-hour a day environment of being inundated with messages and or trying to follow people or having people follow you, and being able to count your friends by the number of followers you have on social media. The pressure that must be on a 12-year-old adolescent, it's just, to me, I like look at it like remarkable. It's just like, how, oh my god, that what a horrible way to live.
No, for sure. And Gavin, it's just not as you say, pinballing between friends and other acquaintances at all hours of the day. People are using social media to spread gossip, and so that's another pressure that a lot of people feel in terms of there's online shaming that's going on and all other kinds of things that are causing these young kids of today more and more pressure. Pressure to be popular, as you say, the number of followers that you have, etc. Uh, that's leading to a bit of a crisis. That's what I would call it in mental health of of people certainly under the age of 16 years old, or maybe even beyond that.
Right. So, I mean, there's been a number of legal steps to deal with this. I think that what we've seen is plenty of consequences from the mental health side. I mean, I think anecdotally we know that, but there's been some pretty high profile cases of kids who have killed themselves and or been bullied to the point of suicide. I mean, I think that the ability to be just basically mentally exhausted from the stimulus of 24-hour, 7-day social media, like kind of bling, for lack of a better word. I mean,
It feels like work.
young minds need some time to like tune off, like, and just deal with some other things. And I think we see a huge spike in things like ADHD and all of those kinds of things. And I actually think that that's probably related to social media and sort of our you know, new and improved world with constant interaction. So we've seen two types of responses. I think we've seen responses of governments trying to legislate matters, and we've seen uh, litigation in the court. So maybe just give our listeners some idea or an overview of what the government response has been in various jurisdictions around the world.
Sure. And on that note, most of the governments around the world have not responded. We've got a handful of governments basically looking to impose bans and restrictions that essentially place the onus on social media providers to restrict access to people either under the age of 16 or under the age of 14. So the lead country with respect to legislation right now is Australia. They've imposed a ban for social media access to children under the age of 16. France is looking at legislation right now. Britain is now beginning to study this. India is also considering this. And in Canada, Prime Minister Carney, we're in February of 2026. In January of 2026, made an announcement that they were looking at banning access to social media for people under the age of 14. There was an online harms bill that was proposed in the last parliament, but because of the election, that bill did not go forward. It was, our term is called prorogued. So the bill was never passed, and I don't think it may have passed first reading, but that bill looks like it's coming back, and they're going to make it more robust to impose this social media ban for kids under the age of 14. I'm not sure that that goes quite far enough, quite
Or if
frankly,
it's going
but
to work,
that's the proposal,
or if it's going to work.
and that's the criticism of those kinds of bills.
I don't know that you can put the genie back in the bottle, so to speak, in terms of social media at this point in time for kids that have basically grown up with a cell phone in their hand since they were 3. I mean, the first kids I see now, little toddlers with iPads and playing, and that's great. I mean, you kids watch movies on them, they play games on them. Look, the reality is, I have kids, you have kids. Anything that keeps them quiet is is generally a pretty good thing. And this, if they had had an iPad when my kids, they would have had an iPad for sure because I would have been guaranteed like silence. But I think the reality of it is that it is a bit of a parenting crutch, to be blunt, because it's time you don't need to really spend with your kid. Your kid is being amused and entertained by this machine. But I don't know how you unhook uh, uh, a 3-year old who has basically had the internet since the time that they've been able to speak, um, and is probably more comfortable with in front of a screen now than they are potentially in front of other kids.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting, I guess, theories in terms of uh, parenting in terms of allowing your children to have an iPad and just sitting there playing games. Uh, parenting is not easy.
No,
Like nobody gives you a manual when you have your children.
no, and
So,
everybody did everybody. I mean, you could sit here like, well, everybody does it. Like everybody, you when you have children and they're young and they're they're demanding attention, and you want them to be amused. And when they're amused, they're quiet. And whether that was, when my kids, we stick them in front of a movie or whatever, you do it. And I don't know how this is going to work. I think that the other thing too is that you've got a whole generation that's incredibly adept technologically.
yeah, to,
They
to to get around a ban,
they
right?
could get
Like,
around
of course.
no problem. I mean, if you think like you could ban all sorts of things for underage people, underage drinking, man, underage cigarettes, when whatever. But where there's a will, there's a way, and I would think that in respect of technology, it's going to be very, very difficult to enforce these types of issues.
Which I guess, Gavin, brings up the lawsuits that are currently have been brought against against companies like Meta, TikTok, Snapchat. I'm sure there's a whole list of them
Right.
in terms of these social media platforms that have primarily been brought by school boards. In the United States, it's more robust. You do have private litigants who are seeking damages against these social media platforms. In Ontario, we have a case that has been brought by the Toronto District School Board against Meta and others seeking damages. And the real interesting thing, and Gavin, this basically comes out of a bit of an assignment that my son is doing at first year of law school on the tort of public nuisance and how the school boards are basically trying to advance the law of this particular tort. They've also sued in negligence and products liability, but the public nuisance tort is an easier test to meet to get damages. And the TDSB claim I was looking at is for $750 million.
That's, I mean,
Like that's an astronomical
it's
amount of
an,
money.
is it? Maybe. Um, but I think that there's so many, it sounds like a great idea, but when you actually start to think about the issues that would be arising in this litigation, and this tort of public nuisance, as I understand it, our Supreme Court has sort of defined it as any activity that substantially and unreasonably interferes with the public's interests in questions of health, safety, morality, comfort, or convenience. And I mean, how do you prove that in the context of social media in 2026 when it's so pervasive throughout society? I mean, it's a remarkable undertaking to try to suggest that social media platforms are somehow responsible for the societal shift, and it is a societal shift to a digital reality, a digital social media reality that has basically pervaded all aspects of human existence.
Yeah, and what I find in terms of the tort of public nuisance in any event, notwithstanding that definition, which appears to be in some respects wide, is actually restricted.
It's
Uh,
super wide.
well,
Yeah,
but it's restricted in the Canadian context, as well as in certain U.S. states, that it actually has to be linked to a real property uh, right. And education is not a real property right. So when you look at the body, certainly of Canadian case law, where you have in British Columbia a case that was dealing with the opioid crisis, that did not qualify as a public nuisance claim because it was not tethered in any way to a piece of land or a property,
yeah.
right? And
This really
so,
goes back to basic old nuisance concepts. I mean, if we talk about a Rylands and Fletcher type nuisance claim, it's like one property, it's leaking of contaminants, for example, would be a nuisance claim
right,
in
that
in
that would be
in
a
tort.
nuisance claim, and a public nuisance claim would be things like blocking access to the waterway or polluting water that impacts that particular public resource. So what they're trying to do, Gavin, is extend the tort.
Which
And
is which is, fine. Look, particularly the law of tort, expands all the time. I mean, that's what the nature of it. I mean, so it's easier to use the old law, but it is possible to make new law.
well, it is, and the criticism here is that it would be such a radical shift because a product's liability claim, for example, or a negligence claim has built-in protections to a defendant. You need to show proximity, foreseeability, causation, and the public nuisance tort gets around that.
Yeah, and
So,
I think that's where it's sort of thinking about it in basic tort concepts, I mean, there has to be a wrong that causes a loss in a very fundamental way. And those three things sound easy, but proving the connection, first of all, you have to prove that there's a wrong. In other words, I mean, it wouldn't operate under basic. I mean, how do you even deal with that? I mean, the notion to my mind is, social media platforms are by design seek to attract people to use them. I mean, it's like if it would be like a television station seeking to attract people to watch the television station so that therefore their ratings go up and they can charge more for advertising and make more money. That's the basic concept of broadcasting generally. And why are social media platforms any different than that? Aren't they trying to bring people in, to get people to be on there clicking away in order to generate revenue? Isn't that the whole point of the business?
It is just as any other business. When you market your business, you're trying to attract people to use your product.
Right.
Um,
So you're
uh,
saying that now, so is it thought now that they're doing that too well? that they, I mean, that they've actually created a media platform that people just can't get enough of, and that therefore that is a problem. I mean, if it were a TV station, then everybody had to watch it all the time, unless they were hypnotizing people or something. I mean, that would be great. You'd be the greatest program director in the history of television, wouldn't you?
sure, but the theory with respect to social media is that the product of social media is deliberately designed or inherently designed to be addictive, and
Yes, it is.
right. So
And if
so
I'm the marketing director or I'm a shareholder of I'm thinking, absolutely, get me more addicts, more clicks, more revenue. Isn't that what I'm trying to do?
right, but when you have a product that creates addicts, you then have responses from government to protect the public from becoming addicts. And
See,
how do
that's
you do
where,
that?
yeah, see, this is where when we started to talk about this subject, and I think that I mean, first of all, there's a couple of things. I think, first of all, our knowledge and the science of mental health in terms of causation with respect to social media or not. I mean, anecdotally, we may all say, yeah, you know, sure, this way higher levels of stress among young people, for example, today than there was, 40 years ago. Um, but there could be all sorts of other reasons for that. So causation is very, very difficult because we don't really understand. I think, frankly, people flatter themselves that they do think they do. A lot of mental health issues. So connecting it directly to social media and saying that it's causative of the damage, you know, intuitively, I think we know that, but scientifically, I don't know how it would be proven.
I think that's the problem with, if you look at your traditional torts, negligence, products liability, that have those built-in requirements. You're absolutely correct. There are a lot of factors or other factors that may be the cause of a mental health issue in any particular individual. So you're trying to get around it, right?
Right. Right. So I mean, we think about it in another context that I was thinking about as we prepared for this segment. I mean, one of the big mass tort um, pieces. There's been lots of them. Asbestos has been one. Big tobacco was another one. There would be
Right.
massive lawsuits by government against big tobacco because the reality was if there was clear evidence to show that smoking caused, for example, lung cancer amongst other, numerous other ailments, which therefore led to increased hospitalization and healthcare costs for government. So that was a direct correlation between a hazardous product and a public health risk that could be scientifically proven. I mean, there was clear evidence that cigarette smoke caused cancer. I mean, there's no question about that. I struggle that there is a scientific evidence of the same caliber and directness to show that social media use causes excuse me uh all sorts of mental health issues in children. We may know it intuitively, but how do you prove it?
Well, look, I think that'll be a very interesting issue. Particularly, the U.S. case is now going forward. They started jury selection in January. My understanding is that this trial is expected to last 6 to 8 weeks.
That's
TikTok
it.
and
Wow.
I don't know.
I mean, it's an enormous subject. I mean, the causation. I mean, the damages issue alone. It's so difficult. I mean, and the reaction is, I suppose it's, how an individual reacts to that pressure and how deeply they get involved in it. I mean, there's all sorts of elements to it too. To me, there's the Instagram addicts who are constantly watching everybody around them and watching, and then there's the kids who get sucked into kind of the online gaming world where they kind of take on the personas of their online personalities, and the real world and their online world kind of merge, or in fact the online world becomes more real to them at some points. I mean, there's
Well,
all sorts
and
of
right,
issues with
and
regards
that's
to that.
that case in the U.S. where the 14-year-old boy taking on a persona Game of Thrones, and then basically the AI chat box trying to get into a relationship with him, and then convinced him, or the allegation is convinced him to try suicide, and the 14-year-old boy committed suicide.
Yeah,
And
the AI thing
like
is a
that's
whole
very
other.
tragic.
And the AI angle, as that becomes the norm, frankly, I personally think that AI, the revolution that is about to occur, or is occurring now, is probably going to make the advent of the internet look like nothing. Because AI is a whole other issue. I mean, in terms of target marketing, in terms of the feeds that are sent to you, in terms of all of that, AI is dealing with all of those things. I mean, we all have noticed. I mean, many people have noticed. You'll be talking about something, and then all of a sudden you'll look at Twitter, and lo and behold, there's an ad for exactly what you were talking about. I mean, there's all sorts of issues with respect to all of this, and sort of how invasive social media and the combination of social media now and AI have become in our daily lives.
Well, and there's all kinds of clickbait, right? It's you're absolutely right. If you watch YouTube and follow something, that's all you're getting on YouTube. You're getting that particular viewpoint. Let's say you're following politics,
Well, I think that it
and
leads us in a whole other direction, because I mean, that is, I think, the reason why, despite the fact that there are more sources of information now than there have ever been in history of humanity, you see a world where people are so much more divided because they are falling into silos of information, into their own echo chambers all the time, and never listening to what the other side has to say.
well, it's echo chambers with information that is not necessarily true.
Who
It's
needs it to be
right.
true? Why
Well,
why let the
that's the
facts go
problem.
and get in the way of a good story? Come
Well,
on.
yes, of course, and we're in a world of chaos because of that, right?
Exactly. So I mean,
So,
I think that this, I mean, respect. I do think that legislative approaches to this issue may be too little, too late, and I think that ultimately, I don't know that you can stop the freight train of technology with legislative mandates. There are all sorts of workarounds, and the other problem that we've spoken about on many occasions on this podcast is who polices the internet. Um, it's not a domestic issue in one way it is, but there are plenty of ways, as I understand it, to get around um, you know domestic borders online.
well, look, it's a of course you can. I suppose we're seeing it right now in Iran. There was no internet access, so certain governments certainly can control access to
Well, they
the
just shut
internet.
it all
And,
down,
right, they
right?
shut it down.
Right.
One hopes that a government in a Western democracy doesn't go that far. But look, you never know in terms of where the world goes these days. In terms of governments reacting and trying to cut off certain social media platforms, whether they can do it or not. I don't know. I'm not a technology wizard, Gavin.
Well,
I'm
you can
just
shut mine off because I haven't got a
well,
clue. Anyways, but
I,
I'm thinking
I
that
might crawl
your
under
average
a rock.
8-year-old, your average 8-year-old today could probably hack around it in 30 seconds. So I'm just, pardon me for being the cynical old guy, but I think that again, too little, too late, and I don't know how you give a generation raised on the internet a taste of it, or not even a taste of it. They're immersed in it,
They're exposed to it all over the
and
place.
then turn around and shut off the tap. Anyways, great topic. One that is certainly, unfortunately, not going to be resolved in this issue, but I think it underlines once yet again one of the problems we see. I think in our time is that the regulation is lagging so far behind in its pace of the incredible and exponentially growing pace of technology, that the ability of traditional regulatory mechanisms to govern non-traditional media, I think that it is whistling past the graveyard.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the cases, Gavin. I don't disagree with you. Look, we're in this massive technological revolution. That
That is only picking up speed
yeah,
every step.
it's right, and it's only picking up speed. And these companies, they don't need factories to do what they're doing. They can be anywhere in the world. And how do you police that?
With national regulations, exactly. How do you police an international, a cyber world
Yeah,
with real world policies? Fascinating, and a almost a Zen like legal question, because I don't think there is an answer. I certainly don't think we're going to figure it out in this podcast. So it always raises the question that if no one is above the law, then everyone is beneath it, except if you run a social media platform. Anyway, Stephen, great topic as always. Thanks very much. Please send us your comments. Any thing you'd like us to chew on in future episodes. Always thrilled to hear from any of our listeners. Always fun debating and talking about these terrific issues of how the law applies to our real life situation, and we'll be following all of these legislative efforts by various governments, certainly with interest, and the litigation both here in Canada and the United States in terms of social media and where that goes, and whether that actually does bring about any meaningful change in the way social media is delivered, and sort of the Wild West right now, frankly, for the youngest and most vulnerable members of society. So, Stephen, thanks again. And always remember, if no one is above the law, then everyone is beneath it.